Hello there, and welcome to my little arty corner here on YouTube. I'm Angela Porter, and I love to draw for lots of reasons. But if I was going to go into them, we'd be here for hours. But I also love to try to inspire and to encourage and to help others. I'm not sure about the word teach or tutor, but try to give hints and tips in the way that I think about art, in the hopes that it will help you think about how you create art, what inspires you, what you like, by perhaps even discovering what you don't like, which may be what I do, and that's fine by me. If it helps you progress in your artistic or creative journey, that is brilliant. That's all that I'm concerned with in many ways. So, what you can see in front of me, this is the accordion journal that I made a few videos below. I will keep putting in the link every time I work with this, put in the description box the link to the video tutorial by Witchcraft Do You Do, Witchcraft Do You Do, in the description box so you can go and have a look, or you go back and find mine. I'll try and remember to put a link to my version in there somewhere. So this is my front cover. I'm definitely going to have to do something about sealing this, because I actually did a thing. I did a couple of things, and you can see the couple of things that I did. I've added gold to the card. Now this is not a perfect, you can see it's a bit streaky and splotchy in places. I'm not a fan of painting with acrylic paint. If you want to know what I used, this is what I had in my stash. It's System 3 from Daler Rowney, original acrylic, and this one is pale gold imit, which means imitation. So it hasn't got real gold in it, but it does the job nicely. So I've done that, but I know a lot of the splotchy bits are going to get covered up. Why didn't I just do where the area was going to be? I don't know, because I'll just slap this on now and see what happens. So this is the tag with my initials on that I made, and I have added around the edge some it's alchemy wax. It's a kind of it's a gold. Oh look, I even got some on the drawing. That's fine. It's gold. This one's Inca gold. It's lovely. It's very old. It's getting quite dry, and I'm not quite sure how to reactivate it. But I'm quite happy to have it sort of like distressed and grungy around the edge and uneven on both sides, because it just adds that bit of a border and it hides the white, which is the main thing I wanted to do. But I am so clumsy with things like this. I either have to embrace my clumsiness or not use them. I'm going to embrace my clumsiness. So that one will fit in there, and that gold will tie it in nicely with the background. This is yesterday's, my last video's drawing, and again I've just put some gold around the edge there so that it just kind of ties in. I don't think I really needed to do that, but I got one thing left to do, which is to adhere it here. And what I've got here, in the hopes that I'll be a bit more successful with this than I have been with others, I've got some double-sided sticky tape, if I can find the end. It's very narrow. You can find this on Amazon or other craft stores. You can spend a lot of money on it. You can get ones that are less expensive. I went for a set of 6 that were less expensive but had good reviews. Some of the expensive ones don't have very good reviews, which was interesting. So I think I may just put, now then, I've got one of my hairs stuck to it already. I should have put the one along the bottom there first. Perhaps if I just do that. And up to there. Don't know if you can see. Well, I was going to get the one that has the red coloured backing on so you can see what I'm doing, but I don't think I'd have got it until sometime next millennium. But this one will do. So what I've done here is I have stupidly, I have my moments. I was going to leave the top open so that I could have it as another secret pocket, But watch, I don't know if you can see, I didn't check which was the top and the bottom. So it looks like no secret pocket for me. I'm not going to try and peel this stuff off, because if you do, it just, oh, I'm just going to get into a right old mess. Seriously. Goodness knows where my hair comes from. So the easiest way to do this, I have found, is I'm going to start by removing the bottom one, and I'm going to start, you have to sort of like stick them down quite hard and firmly before you do that. So I'm going to start off the other ones here and just pull the backing tape off to one side, and that means that I'm not going to try and stick all of this down in one go, God forbid. I'm just going to do this, position it where I want to, more or less, try and get it roughly central. I am not going to be upset if it's a bit wonky. Oh God, I will be upset if it's that wonky. So I've got the bottom bit stuck on, so all I need to do now is just remove this one. I can remove this one, and then I can remove the one at the top. Now, I most probably could have got away with leaving the one at the top unpeeled to use as a pocket, but I'd be worried that I'd end up with that pocket there. I haven't got them lined up at the bottom with each other, but I've got space at the top to put something, like a word or a quote or something, which I haven't got here because I needed the space for my tag, but they'll be fine. I've never made one of these before. I've never done anything like this before. So if it's going to be wonky, it's going to be wonky. But I can do other things. So it's beginning to look very, very shiny in here. Oh, the other thing I did, I don't know if you noticed. Oh God, what's stuck together here? I dry brushed some of the gold paint onto my fabric. So it's now got a hint of metallic sheen to it, which is quite cute. This is my next page, and what I've got here, I've already cut the paper, and you can see it's a bit bigger than this. This is all going to be very higgledy-piggledy and very strange, I think. But, you know, welcome to my world. In the real world, I'll cut everything the same size. But it ain't going to happen. As I say, it's going to be what it is. So this I cut to 14 centimetres by 17, but I actually cut ½ centimetre off for reasons I'll explain in a moment. And I sort of scored it a little bit off centre, down the middle, folded it that way. So I can see that it's got a fold in it, and it'll fit nicely on this section here. But it means that I now have 3 sides to work in, and I could even put some paper in here to make it into a mini notebook, or a place to journal or write, or to stick Aids memoir. But I do want to work on the front of this, as I have done the others. Now, I could colour the front of this with some distress ink, but I'm not going to. I'll do that another time. But what I am going to do is my usual kind of thing, where I'm going to put some guidelines in for where I want my design to try to stay within. Yeah. Notice I say try to stay within. It gives me permission that if it's got to spill out of these lines, it's going to spill out of these lines. And I'm fine with that. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do inside, whether I'll decorate inside, put some paper, turn it into a mini booklet. There's all kinds of things we could do. So there, we've got that. So because this is sticking up, what I'm going to do is I'll just work on it flat like this. That'll be, well, let me check. Yeah, that'll be the right way to open, won't it? Yeah, because it'll go on that page, yeah, and it will fold there. Yes, that's right. How to get yourself into a dither. It is Saturday evening here in the UK. Oh, it's just gone 6 o'clock at night. So I'm having an interesting time. I am searching here for some pens from my pencil case. There's the other one I was looking for. So I've got an 05, an 03 and an 01 Unipin pen. I've done lots of botanicals, haven't I? And I think what I might like to do today is something that perhaps has some... I'm going to start putting things away before I start banging and crashing stuff. Okay. That perhaps has some flowiness to it and that will be quite abstract. So I've done a few things. Yeah, let's have a look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from a little bit in from this corner, and I'm going to draw a curve like that, and I'm going to come back on myself so that this meets like so. And then I'm going to start to add an aura around this, and this is going to spill out on this one aura, and I am going to have that meeting that line again here. I'm using the term aura. It means to really repeat the shape, but either outside or inside, you know, to follow the shape of the line at a fairly equal distance. It's hand drawn, it's not going to be perfect, but as close as you can manage it will be fine. Or not, if you prefer it not so perfect. Sometimes it's better to embrace the imperfections. Then what I'm going to do inside here is I want to create something that looks a bit like there's a hole here, or there's a tunnel going in. So I am creating these lines that go inwards, and then on this last one here, this is where I'm going to colour this in black, and that's where I could do with a thicker pen. So I've got a Tombow Fudenasuki here. It's got a flexible nib. I prefer the harder nib. I do have some of the softer ones, but they're so soft I just end up with thick lines everywhere. Whereas with the harder one, I've got more chance of getting the finer ones. So I think you can see that this looks like we've got a tunnel going in. And I'm going to just add a couple more auras here. But I'm going to choose to not have these ones going all the way around. Choose to bring them to an end at my edge here. I haven't done a very neat job of this, but at the end of it all, nobody's really going to notice, and there's probably things I can do to make an adjustment of that. And then I want to bring some around the other way, so I'm just going to turn this around so that I can just start to get this perhaps going around, and then start to have it creating that aura here. I do love these kinds of designs. So thankfully today it's been relatively dry. I went out for a nice walk this afternoon. Sadly, there's been flooding in my area again. And where I went for a walk, there was quite a lot of runoff from the hill in places. And the stream that runs through the cemetery was absolutely overflowing. Not quite overflowing, but I think it would have been at the height of the torrential rain. It was even coming through walls, the water around the boundary of it. And just think, sheesh, that's a lot of water. Okay, it was nice. The bird song was just lovely. Shame there was no sun today, but that's fine. Can live with that. I was glad to get out in the fresh air. It was fresh and it was chill. Okay, so I want to do something down here. Now I've got options. I could carry on with my flowy pattern, or I could use this area to put something else in. And I think I'm tempted to fill this with something else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to complete the border here to give myself an area like this. And I think I'm going to do this pattern. So it's 3 concentric circles, but the middle one I'm filling in, but I'm leaving that little highlighted dot there. And then I'm going to have them overlapping as I feel they need to. It's a very simple kind of pattern. It looks like piles of seeds all together, and if you're familiar with me, you'll know that I absolutely love seeds and seed pods as inspiration for things to draw. So these will be really quite nice and interesting. But I think it will be a nice counterpoint to the line, you know, the larger scale flowy pattern I've got going on there. And I'm calling it a flowy pattern. I don't know if it has any kind of name, and I'm not too worried. Other than my walk today, I've spent a lot of the day working in my sketchbook, and I'll give a quick look at what I've been doing at the end of the video, because while this is processing today, I'm likely to carry on with my sketchbook, my current sketchbook page, and I've really enjoyed doing that as well. I was absolutely exhausted yesterday. I was good for nothing. I didn't do any art or anything yesterday evening. Say I was absolutely good for nothing. The peopling is very draining for me. And as much as I loved seeing my niece and my sister, you know, it had a toll on me, so much so that I slept through. I did wake up for a short while, but I slept through till 9 o'clock this morning. And that's not like me, usually. But I must have needed it. So I've had these things to do, and I'm, you know, been very happy about it, to be honest. So today it's been a quiet day for that. Tomorrow's Sunday, I know. Usually, you know, it's a day off or whatever, but I do have some things I'd like to do in terms of work for Whimsical Houses and the next book I'll be contracted for. So this evening will be my time to indulge myself in my latest personal projects or explorations of art, my expression of myself through art. And tomorrow it'll be once I feel I've done what I need to do. I may have to do some serious adulting and start to pull all the receipts together for my accountant, download them all. Nightmare. But I will get there. Sneak up on myself. Now I've thought about it, I'm getting panicky. So it's one of these things where if I think about it, I'll just become paralysed almost with the thought of it, the overwhelming nature of it in one way or another. But if I can sneak up on myself and just do it all, it gets done a lot quicker than I expect it to, and I'm exhausted at the end of it, but it gets done. So that may be something I'll need to do tomorrow instead of perhaps the work for books, to be honest, because that's an urgency. It's here in the UK. If you're self-employed or if you run your own business, whatever, you have to submit your tax returns by the end of January for the financial year from April 2021 to the end of March 2022. So it's a bit of a, if you don't, you get fined. Last year there was sort of, because of COVID and so on, there was an extension allowed. You know, you could submit things later, but this year not. So we go. So there's that little section. Now I want to carry on with my flowy patterns here, but I'm going to start developing the shape a little bit and having it altering. I'm doing that by drawing down the line and just allowing the lines to diverge a little bit at the end, and it creates a different shape and pattern. Do it this way because I can see better. I'm not trying to work in the shadow either of my hand. There's a good chance you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm getting a nice interesting shape going on here. It's becoming a lot rounder, and I think I may just want to do one more. And that gives me that lovely curvy shape here. So much so that I think the next line I do is going to be like this to create an opening in here. It looks a bit like I'm going to put an eye in here, but I am not. Fret not. I'm not doing creepy cute. Cutely creepy. I think this, I will put an aura inside it. And that then turns this into a kind of seed shape. And I think I'd rather love to pop a seed pod in here. So I'm going to do it like this. If I go this way, this will be the right way up. So I'm going to thicken this line. And then the others are going to be, I'm going to break the other lines that I do to add some texture. And that feeling of lightness there, as if there's a highlight. And with these lines, I'm always starting them from the corner and sort of drawing along the line here to get that kind of shape. And I am going to put some lovely big seeds in here, like so. And hopefully this does not now look like an eyeball. I can hope. Now I've said that's what it looks like. You're all going to think that's what it is. Honestly, it's not. Looks like it's one eyelid, many eyes underneath. But it's not. It's going to be a seed pod. Honest, it's seeds. I'm going to use a thinner pen. And what I'm going to do to help with this idea of seed pods, at the top I'm going to start along the edge and then I'm going to draw down. I'm going to draw a part spiral like this. And then I'm going to go back around and get it to join there. Like you see on some seeds, you've got those baby plants in there. Sometimes they're just like little U shapes or whatever. I just like to do spiral shapes. And perhaps some of them go in the opposite direction. That, you know, it doesn't matter which way you draw them. Whichever you feel happiest with. And on the end, these ones on the ends are so small, I'm just putting a little loop in there. So that looks a bit more like seeds, doesn't it? And I'm going to use my thicker pen just to thicken the left and bottom on the outside and the top and the right on the insides of these, just to add that feeling of dimension here. There we go. No longer an eyeball. That's fun. Okay, so here I've got this shape, and I think I'm going to make use of this curve here. And I'm going to draw a fish. It seems genius. There's a lovely teardrop shape inside here, and perhaps I'll just aura that and see what comes of that in a moment. But for these, I'm going to have some of these sort of join that original line that I drew of this fishy shape, coming from here and going back and sort of like joining up with it. So I could have started from one place and done the same as I did over here. It doesn't matter which way around you do it, really. You end up with the same kind of thing. And then what I want to do is the next one, I'm going to put one of those shapes in again. And I have got enough space here, just auraed around to complete that loop. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my little cave in here, if you like, if you will, like so. Just, oh, I've got a thick pen. Why scratch around with a thin nib? This is why pens have different thicknesses of nibs. Okie dokes. So I need to aura around this one. You can come back and join there. And I'm just going to add a couple more auras, and I am going to go quite a bit outside of the line there. On this side it's come back and joined it, but I'm fine with that. And then what I'm going to do is I will just bring this all together here along my pencil line to give myself a nice edge, like so. That looks like we've got lots of folding going on here. I do like that. Okay, and here with this little bit, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to aura inside with V shapes like this, and I'm going to end up with this kind of little bulbous bit, this bit sticking up here, just that little bit. I quite like that. Okay, in here I've got options. Now the end here, I could leave it like that, but what I could do as well is I could get it to join one of these lines, which is what I've done. So it doesn't look like it's separate like this one did. And I think with this one, again, I'm going to create a kind of cave going on. I'm going to start with the lines close together on this side, but coming round here and getting wider. And really get them curling back on themselves each time. Like this. And then that's my last one, so I'll fill that one in with black. Just creates that feeling that we've got. Well, this one doesn't really look like it's going inwards anywhere, but it works fine and well. So I'm going to put a couple of auras that go completely around this side, because I think that might help with this feeling of something going down inside, and I think it definitely has. And then I'm just going to have some that just follow along this line and then just flare out like this here. I love where they come together like this. It almost feels that we've got things twisting, and I'm going to make use of that in a moment, I think. I think I could do another one. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to follow this line down, and I'm going to start to add some that are going from this section out here, so it looks like they've twisted over. Now I could get very controlling about this, count how many I've got here and how many I need here, but I'm not going to, because it will be fine. And that actually is working quite nicely. It almost looks like it's almost beginning to twist. One more then. Along there. And that just gives that nice complete ending. And I want to do something here as well, because I just feel this needs a bit of auring around this seed pod here, just to connect it into the whole pattern. And then just doing some from here. I'll soon be finished with this. Should be great. And then I've got this lovely section up here, and what I'm going to do, rather than putting a new and different pattern in here, I think I'll add some of these up here as well. Because what that will do is it will give us a feeling of layers as well. It's almost like these are right in the background and everything else is overlaying these weird seeds, or whatever you want to call them, bubbly things. I suppose they could look a bit like bubbles. Won't take me too long to do this, and I'll be done then. Well, I'll be done as far as drawing goes, but I'm going to leave this one very graphic in black and white, but I am going to add some shading, and to do that I'm not going to use graphite because it will just smudge. I could seal it with something like microglaze, but I know microglaze will shift the pigments in the ink I'm using to draw with, So I really don't want to do that. It will make everything a bit very grimy looking. So I'm going to use at least one, if not two, different shades of grey in Pit Artist pens. They're from Faber-Castell. You can buy them singly, the colours, or sets, or the whole lot if you really wanted to. But they are brush pens that have got India ink in them, which means that when they're dry, they're permanent. They can shift the pigments a little bit, especially if I don't give them enough time to dry, which is likely to happen here. But they work quite nicely for this. And I'm not going to try and blend them out and get gradients and feathering. I'm going to use quite simple approach to adding shadow here. Highlight will just be the paper itself. So I'm just looking at adding some shadow just to help to bring out the layers and the movement of these patterns more than anything else. Okay. Nearly done. You know, I could have left this with just a little gap there that I perhaps could have put in a colour as if we've got another colour beneath it, but I'm not doing that. I'll fill the whole lot up. Although part of me is thinking, Angela, white space is a good idea. Give somewhere for the eye to rest. I'm thinking, nope, not today. Nope. It's my work. I can be as complex as I like. It's my personal work. But by all means, if you're drawing along with me and you decide that you like it as it is with that little gap or space there, a little bit of white space, or whatever colour space it is, and you like that, by all means, leave it. It's your work. It'll be different to mine. So that's my little flowy drawing. So the only thing I want to do here is to add a concentric circle tucked in where I can put my initials, like so. I'm going to put 2023 January in there. And that then is all the drawing done. I'm not going to do any more. I'm not going to add line weight to the ends of the lines or anything. But what I am going to do, I'm going to give that a moment to dry. And I am going to then go over this with my, I've got a putty or kneadable eraser here, which is great. You know, I need to get rid of the pencil lines, those outlines, before I do anything else, which this is great for. But it's also great for picking up any extra pigment from the drawing, from the pen lines, so it's less likely to be moved with these. Now, these are my Pit Artist pens. I suspect the palest one, the cold grey one, will be a bit too light. Cold grey 3, there isn't a cold grey 2 as far as I know. There could be. So I've got 3 and I got 4. 4 is really quite dark. I think I'm going to go, I'll go with this one, and if I need to I can put the lighter one on the edge. So I am definitely going to start at the bottom here, and I am going to put a shadow line right underneath here, because that instantly picks these up. And I'm also going to put one around the edge of my window, my little border here, because that will suggest that we've got a window looking in. And what I think I might do as well is use the lighter one here and perhaps just go inside it just to bring the shadows out that little bit more. The Pit Artist pens do take a moment or two to dry, so it's a good chance I can actually do that. So that actually works quite nicely. So I'm going to do the same thing here, perhaps putting a wider shadow at the top, and I'll go down and do that here, because I think that suggests more than anything that we've got, these are really much lower underneath. So I'll do that here as well, and just bring that, we'll have some shadow there and some on the side, mainly at the top there. And then I'm going to use this lighter colour just to go along the edge, just to try to blend it a little bit out, but also to give a slightly lighter shadow around the edge of it. So already that's started to lift this up and to add that shadow and dimension. These tuck underneath here, so I'm going to pop some shadow there. I'm also going to add the lighter grey on the edge. I do find it a lot better to add the lighter grey after I've done the darker grey, because it I find it easier to blend that darker colour out, just that little bit, which is what I'm going to do here, because those are going underneath there. And here I'm going to need, oops, I've gone a bit far there, quite a bit of shadow here. I'll correct that with a white gel pen, but I also want to bring this shadow closer together here, as if this would be more in shadow than these would be, so that we really get that feeling we're looking into a tunnel. And I can add some extra weight there, colour. What I might actually do is use the darkest one here as well that I've got, and add just that little bit more darkness. Use the medium one just to blend it out while it's still wet, and then the palest one just to try to feather that edge just that little bit, like so. So I'm going to see if I can feather, that's better. Let it dry and it doesn't move it quite so much, so that's really quite nice, that works. Perhaps here I'll need, just bring this lighter one in that little bit more. Okay, I'm going to need some shadow right here where these lines are closest together, and then I'll use this medium one just to start to blend this out. I'm going to need shadow there because it's going to be, I want my seed pod above the others, and I think I might need a little bit here just to bring these perhaps down and out a bit here. Now I'm not trying to create realism here, I'm trying to bring out the layers and to add interest to this. And this is just one way of doing it. There are bound to be many, 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 many ways that you can add shadows to these to bring this feeling of dimension out. Now with this one, I'm making the darker grey more prominent towards the bottom. This is the medium shade of grey, and then I'm going to come around with the lightest one and just blend that, just that little bit, leaving some of the white paper there as the highlights. So again, I'm going to make sure that I've got underneath this, where the shadow is, perhaps having it a little bit thicker at the top. Then I'm going to go around the edge with the paler or the medium grey, and then use the lighter grey just to blend this out that little bit. And that really does make it look quite dimensional. If I need any more white or white highlights, I can use a gel pen if I want to put some dots in. For this one around the outside edge, it's going to be interesting. I think I'm going to put darkest grey right in the corners, medium grey, just blending that out a little bit. And then I'm going to come back with this lightest grey. And I have to work with these pens, you have to work quite quickly so they don't dry on you while you're doing this. But just to blend that one out. For the seeds, I'm going to put some of the darkest colour where my thickest lines are on underneath these to begin with. If this dries, I'm fine with this one drying. I've got such a small area to work in that I'm going to do that. I'm also going to put shadows where these seeds overlap. And at the bottom as well. Come back with a medium shade and just see if I can just soften the edge or blend it a little bit. If I can't, I can't. And it'll be what it is. But I do just want that extra bit of... In the corner it may all be in shadow. And then I can come back with the lightest shade and just add that in. I think it's going to be across all of these areas, really. I'm just going to put some of that lightest colour around the top part of this spiral and around the bottom, like so. And that helps to bring that dimension out a little bit. Okay, here on these, I think I will put, and these ones here, I think I'll put some shadow right on the edge and of all of these as well, and with the palest colour next, just to blend them out a little bit. And these here too. And this. We need to find out if they've got any greys that fill the gaps in here. So we've got those. And I'm going to do the same at the top here, where I'm going to put some of the darker colour where these bend over or seem to bend over. Then the medium colour just to start to blend that out. I've got this one is following round to the other side and I'll deal with that in a moment. This one follows around here, so that would be in highlight, and I'm going to put some shadow on this side. Picked up the medium shade there, but you can add the darker shade on top. Because the paper's already wet, it'll blend out quite a long distance. Like so. Hopefully you're beginning to get the idea. I say I think you're beginning to get the idea, but I don't actually know whether you are or not. I do love having your comments and suggestions and questions and encouragement so much. I really do appreciate that. More than I can express, actually. To say it warms the cockles of my hearts. My heart. I don't have more than one heart. I'm not a Klingon. But oh, that really looks like some kind of pipe, doesn't it? So we're going to have darkness, these flowing out from underneath it, for sure. And the lighter colour just to blend that out. So it may be a bit patchy and blotchy, this shading, but I can live with that because it is the nature of the paper and the pens I'm using. And from a distance, hopefully it would look all right. So leaving that white bit there as a highlight. I do need to try and blend this just that little bit more. Be all right. Okay, while I'm on this area, let's get these ones done. These are all going to be really quite dark. There, and even that one, because they're coming out from underneath. So we're getting so where each of these sections, if you will, and you know, each part of this section is longer, I'm making the shadowy bit that little bit longer as well. Because I just think it's the kind of thing that makes sense to me, kind of. It really gives that feeling that these shadows here are really dug in. Okay. This one here, I'll do this one in shadow, but I think I'll use the medium colour for that, just to help it stand out that extra little bit from these and the other ones, because it's the one on the top, so I think it would be lighter than the others, to be honest. So again, I'm just going to add a little bit of lightness along the ends of all of these and just blend that out. And then we can come back here. All of these are going to be very much in shadow. So they're going underneath this part here. So I'm just making sure I get plenty of that down, and then I can just blend it out while it's still wet. While parts of it are still wet at least, and then I can do this one. Now, even though I'm doing this with quite an abstract-y pattern, the principles are the same, no matter what you want to add shading to. Well, I think they are anyway. I could be wrong, but I'm trying to work with some common sense and some kind of logic, I suppose, here, as much as I can, and applying those sort of rules to every part that I can. That would make sense if I do that, and then let's pull this that way, perhaps there. Because if I apply the same rules across the whole of the pattern, as it were, the whole of the design, then it's a coherent application of the rules, if you like, and it makes sense in a way that perhaps, you know, more than realism, it's got a sense to it, it's got a logic to it, or it's got a set of rules to it. So I'm essentially looking for where lines kind of go under each other and where there's a depth to the design. So here I'm going to be looking at leaving some white highlights as I get further out from this hole, as it were, this cavern. So I'm going to just add some shadowing here and some blending out with the mid-tone, with the areas getting that little bit longer perhaps. I'm trying to look at a nice kind of shape here as well that would work, though I'm not averse to using raggedy edges to make my point, I suppose. But we've got that there, so that really does look like we've got something going in. And I am just going to add some shadow here. I'm going to add a little bit here because there's some underneathing. Is that a word, underneathing? Well, if it isn't, there is now. To underneath, we're underneathing. I just think that makes sense there because it looks like they're getting closer together, and I just think that we need to look at these underneath parts, the underneath things of the design, just to help to bring that out. And I think here I'm also going to need some of the darker colour right in that section there, and then perhaps just bring that out that little bit further, and again with the lightest shade just to help with that. Problem is, I've now just realised that I've got this here, which is also where we've got some of this colour going underneath, so I'm going to just do this, and if I lose some of the white highlight, I lose some of the white highlight. It's fine, it'll be okay. Okie dokes, nearly done. All right, along here, right the way around here, we've got lots of lines going underneath. So I'm going to deal with the underneath things. Be a whole species of creature, couldn't it? The underneath things that live below. In the underrealms of the world. Yeah, let's focus on art, Angela. Oh no, then I've brought some of that round, but that's fine. I can add some here as well. Perhaps just a bit more here then. So that'll be okay. And then I just need to work out what I'm going to do here. And I think these bits I'm just going to add some shading around here, because they do actually sort of go underneath this one, so that will help to bring that one back up. And by having darker shadow next to it, my missteps with the shading just now will be less noticeable. It'll look more like, okay, that's what's going on there. This one here, I'm just going to add some darkness to the edges of these. This one I'm going to put some darkness just there. So I'll use my medium tone just to blend these up a bit. That one there. And then I can go like this, which will be lovely. Will actually. This looks a bit odd and this one looks a bit odd, so I think these are going to need some shadow at the ends, as will most probably these. Like so. Being really careful here, you can tell, can't you? It's just simply because I know I need to work quickly. This all feels quite damp now and sticky, but it will dry off. Now I am not going to stick this into my accordion journal today, because I've got to decide, or I've got some decisions to make about what I do with this, whether I leave as it is, if I want to add some kind of pages inside for writing on, or some other images, or, you know, sort of like start, you know, enough pages to start to build up sort of a library of patterns. That actually works. How about that? Hey, I've surprised myself. Am I allowed to say that? I think so. Much prefer things like this to graphite. I know somebody's going to complain, but just going to put some shadow around that, inside and outside, and that is now complete. madness. Really, 3 patterns really. This one, these flowy lines and how I make them bend and fold, or the illusion of bending, folding and twisting. And then I guess it's the little seeds inside here with the spiral baby plantling in there. You know, just straight lines similar to this, but I just broke them up. But I actually like this. That is odd for me to say, but I do. I'll tell you what I do need to do is I'm just going to pop some shadow around this as well. Perhaps a little bit like that, just to lift that up because it is sticking up above the paper. So, okay, this is the journal. This is the page where it's going to go, and I will add gold to this page before I do anything, or maybe copper. So I have copper, I think. I might even have silver. But I think gold, because I've got gold on there. I could dry brush some copper on. And that's what it will look like on here. And then I've got options for in here. I could make a signature of pages to go in here from fairly thin paper and stitch it in or glue it in. If I do that, I will show you how it's done, possibly. If you could see my face, I'm grimacing at the thought because that involves some precision and I can be really clumsy about things like that. But I'm really chuffed with that. Okay, I said I'd show you what I've been doing today very briefly because I am going to post this on my social media. But I think these are creepy scary. Or creepy cute. It's just something that came out of a conversation with a friend and something I decided to explore and run with. As you know, I do have a bit of a thing for Halloween and eerie things. I mean, drunken party skulls and tentacles. They make me smile. When they're done in a cute way, you know, they're not scary really. But these are all supposed to be some kind of expression or, you know, some kind of emotion. So surprise, confused and overwhelmed, and the to-do list, you can see it's adulting, chores, calming, sorries. Yeah, shy and bashful. I'm not quite sure I've got that one right, but you know, astonished, you know. This one is supposed to be confused or quizzical. I'm not quite sure which it is. These two have definitely been inspired by medieval illuminated manuscripts. Inspired by, yeah. This one, I think it's sleepy or it might be content. I was going for kind of embarrassed or something, but it hasn't worked out. This weird thing which I want to add colour to is sad. And this one, because the eyes is, well, they're all silly anyway. But this one is meant to be silly. So I've got all of these looked like these before I added colour. And the difference that colour makes, it's just brought these to life. These are in my sketchbook. They're not finished. They're not polished. I do want to get some of them into my computer. Or I do want to recreate them digitally so I can add colour and texture and pattern that way. This is just getting the work done and just playing around with things and seeing what happens. All good fun. But this is where we are now. And I am really pleased with this. I didn't have any expectations as to what I was going to draw today. Until I made that very first line, I had no idea what was going to happen. And you saw and heard my thought processes unfold as I went forward. And I'm so glad I've added that shading. I could almost do with darker here and in places. So I may go over that with the dark pen once this has dried a little bit more. Because you can layer those pens up as you can. Alcohol markers, another medium. So thank you for joining me. I hope you have a go at this. However you're going to store them and keep them. I need to do something up here and a bit up there, but essentially it's done. I also need to hide that little bit there. White gel pen. I'd love to see what you create if you do something with this. Please share with me on social media, tag me in your work if you post it, or you can send me a message on wherever you find me on social media. Be warned, I can find it hard to check in on messages with places like Instagram or Twitter. I don't do them much. I might post there, but I don't go back and forth. At least Facebook tells me I've got a message. So, mostly. So anyway, I'm wittering. Look after yourselves, take care, and find time to be creative. Until the next time, ta-ra for now. Bye.